Kelly Hayes for GenConnect.com here at the 2011 Aspen Ideas Festival. We're joined by the 49th Lieutenant Governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start out with congratulations on the birth of your new son.
Hey, I appreciate that. 12 days old, Hunter.
Absolutely fantastic,
Yeah.
and go get him.
It's the best. I don't want to sound like a real cliche, but it's the best.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So you're bringing into the world a new son at a time in which there are tremendous economic challenges globally, particularly for the 8th largest economy in the world, the state of California.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Give me 2 or 3 things that you can name that would be appropriate.
Let's put it in perspective. California's economy is still suffering from this recession. We're now the second highest unemployment rate in the United States. We're around 12%. You've got 26 counties with unemployment north of 15%. You've got 7 counties with unemployment north of 20%. And those numbers change on a monthly basis, but seasonally adjusted, it's about as bad as it was in the Great Depression in some of these counties in our state. The first thing we need to do is put a plan together. It's a remarkable thing. I'm not exaggerating. California has not had a jobs plan, an economic development plan, in over a decade and a half. We shut down our trade offices in 2003. We got out of the business of intentionality around manufacturing. We didn't focus on cluster strategies, and we have no workforce alignment because we have no plan to align the workforce strategies to. So number one, we've put together a team, Brookings and McKinsey, doing national search of best practices. We'll be out with a plan in July, the first plan again in a decade and a half. Second, we have 36 agencies responsible for job creation and retention in the state, which means no one's accountable. So we're actually going to create a new aggregated economic development and workforce agency in the state, and then we're going to get back in the business of intentionality, building the metro and a regional cluster strategy, a framework to take advantage of our geographic presence, particularly as a gateway to Asia and the rest of the world, and really focus on being more competitive from a tax incentive perspective and a productivity perspective.
What's so interesting to me as I hear you talk about this, you make it sound like you're going to run California like a business, and it hasn't been run that way in the past.
No, and I come from the private sector. I've got about 1,000 employees in the businesses I created, and when I became mayor of San Francisco, we were suffering from similar fates. We were particularly from the private sector looked upon as a business unfriendly city. We reconstituted our mayor's office of economic and workforce development. We put together teams in biotech, life science, and nanotech, green tech, digital media, digital arts, and we put together incentive packages, public-private transaction teams focused on doing programmatic EIRs. I won't bore folks by saying, explaining all that, except to say we got back in the business. And we saw success. We got the Stem Cell Institute to locate in San Francisco. We're now 73 biotech companies. We started with 1. We've been very successful in green tech. We're the most sustainable, greenest city in not only the United States, but even if you look into Canada, the most green city. And we grew the economy. And so that's the approach we need to take in California, because that's the approach they're taking in Texas. That's the approach they're taking in Mississippi. It's the approach they're taking in Louisiana, not just Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Maryland, and even now your governor here, Hickenlooper. John's a good friend. A real focus on regional strength, a focus on, again, intentionality, getting in the game of not only recruiting new companies, but supporting existing companies and creating conditions for the real job growth, which is new startups.
Gavin, you're here with a couple of other mayors to talk about the state of the union of U.S. cities in the 21st century. Can you tell me a little bit about that conversation?
It was great. I mean, you tell you about 2 of my friends outside of politics, Cory Booker and Antonio Villaraigosa, and it was, I thought, a very spirited discussion, because we were focusing, as Bill Clinton would say, on the how business. We weren't just focusing on an ideological debate about this is what we should do or this new way of thinking. Sometimes, with all due respect, that frustrates the heck out of me, because we can hold hands and have a candlelight vigil and pray that the world changes, but it doesn't necessarily make it so. And so mayors are on the leading edge, because we have to be hard-headed, we have to be pragmatic. No one cares about your ideology, they care about your ability to get something done. And we understand cause and effect, good decisions and bads. We understand inputs and outputs in real time, and we have a constituency 24/7 that will let us know how we're doing. We don't have to wait for the pundits and the polls. We get a sense of that. And so that's a spirit of governance that we need to bring at the state and, with all due respect, the federal level. And I'll tell you, coming from being a mayor where ideology was secondary to productivity and resolve and results, I come up to Sacramento in California, and it's all ideology. It's a microcosm of what's happening in this country. Democrats, Republicans, sort of a tribal framework. If you break the precedent, the special interests crush you. And this is fundamentally the greatest challenge we have to our democracy, because the reality is we're not producing and performing, particularly with income inequality, the loss of the middle class, our inability to compete by creating new economies, by having a workforce that's competitive because the educational system's suffering, our higher educational system's beginning to show weakness compared to our international indexes, and so we've got to get back in that game.
Gavin Newsom, Lieutenant Governor of the state of California, in the how business, as it were.
I like
You can see more from Gavin at genconnect.com and also at aifestival.org. Gavin, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.